Alrighty, welcome to Building Legends, so managing teams through uncertain times and complexity. My name's Jamie Summers, I'm a project director at the Building Intelligence Group. I also sit on the Northern Regional Committee for the Building Institute, and I'm an ambassador for a charity called Health 15, which is a health and wellness charity focused on the construction sector. A quick one that, sorry, was handed to me last minute, but I just want to take you through a bit about the Institute. So Building Institute Aotearoa has been connecting people across New Zealand's construction sector for over 40 years, helping them grow in their careers, skills and networks. We currently have over 1,500 members with our office in Wellington and committees supporting northern, central and southern regions. We offer plenty of ways to connect and learn from our annual conferences, Building Legends workshops like the one today, site visits, panel discussions and mentorship programs, to online webinars, podcasts and even special social events like golf days, quiz nights, bowling and site visits. Sorry, I think I said site visits twice then. And we celebrate excellence through our Building People Awards and our Next Gen Awards. So membership is all about connecting, growing, exploring and being recognised. There's even a 3-month free trial, so you can give it a go if you want. Try before you buy. If you do want to be a part of our community that supports and celebrates people in the building industry, we'd love you to join us. If you're not really ready to jump in straight away, we offer that 3-month free trial, so just drop us an email at buildinginstitute.nz. Right. And with that, I'd also like to acknowledge there's a few of our members and a few of our board members and a few of our members here this evening, and also some of our guys from the home team. So just like to acknowledge them and all the hard work they do for the Institute. Upcoming events, so just a quick plug for some of them. So we've got our industry insights, AI in action, what boards and executives need to know. We've got our built environment career streams launch. We've got a couple of golf days coming up. So day after tomorrow down in Central Region, we've got a golf day down there, and Southern Region on the 31st of October. And the big one for the Northern Region, so we've got our Jib factory tour. So it's a bit of a bus trip down to Tauranga with the Jib factory tour, as well as a special visit around 90 Devonport Road. That's LT McGuinness's largest mass timber office building, showcasing innovation and construction practices. So again, as I said, welcome. And I forgot to do this. It's on. It is on. There we go. And I pressed that twice. It's probably going to. So before we get into this, just a few Chatham House rules there. So the attendees agree to comply with any notifications made either prior to or at an event. That Chatham House rules apply. Basically, any presentations, this prohibits an attendee from sharing remarks made during any presentations to others who are not themselves in attendance at the event. Any advice given in these sessions are generic in nature and should not be relied upon. You should obtain your own independent legal, financial and insurance advice when making any decisions that may affect your business. None of the speakers or the Institute are liable to you in any way in relation to advice given or admitted from these sessions. So there you go. So what have we got for you today? We've got two pretty cool sessions coming up. Session 1 looks at leadership versus management, people-focused leadership, and then a case study on the KiwiRail Papakura to Pukekohe project. We'll then stop for a quick 10-minute break. That'll be somewhere around 4:40, and then we'll jump into session 2, which will be quite an interactive session, and this session will dive into the internal mental skills in excelling in complex situations. The session is designed to get you to think by relating to your current reality, to the insights shared into mental skills of high-performing people, how these skills relate to team dynamics in complex and uncertain environments, and these sessions will be interactive as we construct our knowledge together on this modern day norm of dealing with complexity. So, our speakers today. So we have, and they're up there in a different order if they are down here, Marissa Lorigan. So she's a director of Inc. Group. Marissa has been a leader in the construction industry for over 20 years, delivering major projects across both New Zealand and Australia. Her career is defined by a commitment to excellence, innovation, and collaboration shaping some of the region's most significant developments. We have Hannah Horn. So Hannah is a senior project manager at KiwiRail. Hannah's career in rail kicked off on the Papakura to Pukekohe electrification project as part of KiwiRail's graduation program. Her passion, commitment, and drive saw her quickly progressing to lead a successful delivery of the OLE package. I'm not sure, but I'm sure we'll find out. During her time on the P2P, Hannah developed a strategic, caring leadership style focused on fostering supportive and collaborative and positive teams. Since then, Hannah's been working on KiwiRail's Auckland Traction Power Feeds project and has been promoted to senior project manager, so congratulations. And we have Isaac Kett. So Isaac's a senior associate at Frequency. Isaac's 20 years of experience in civil construction across New Zealand, Canada and Australia, working as both client side and contractor side. He's known for his composed, analytical and collaborative approach. Was awarded the Consultant Award and the Supreme Award at the 2024 New Zealand Building Peoples Awards. The award recognised Isaac's exceptional technical expertise, problem solving and compassionate leadership. Isaac's innovative project management, commitment to ESG and willingness to go above and beyond has set a new industry standard and fosters a strong culture of collaboration. And finally, not on the stage, he's over there, we have Mark Watson with us, who will take the second session. So Mark's a performance coach. Mark Watson has a unique background in Olympic and performance sports and the many elements that make up high-performing people and high-performing systems. Over the last 20 years, Mark has been lucky enough to work with people in the performance areas of sports and in business organisation, and he is now available to help you and your teams perform at your best and on repeat. So, without further ado, we'll just do a quick round the room, if that's okay. And I don't want to take go because we're quite short on time tonight, but I would be quite keen just for everyone to say hello, introduce themselves, and just let the panel know what they want to get out of today's session and why they're here. So,
hello, I'm Abby. I work at Becca as a project manager. I actually got invited quite last minute, so I wasn't sure when I was going to, but I'm hoping to learn something about leading teams to use in the future.
Thanks, Abby. I'm Scott Logie. I'm a director at Becca and also one of the committee members for the Northern region. And this opportunity is to really, for my colleagues to meet the wider industry and learn from those that have experienced some pretty complex projects.
Hi everyone, my name is Felicia Duque. I'm also a project manager at Becca. Yes, I was luckily invited by Scott over here. And yeah, I just want to really hear about everyone's experience and try to absorb as much as I can.
Hello, I'm Millie MacArthur. I'm a senior project manager at the Building Intelligence Group. Again, also a bit of a late invite, but tonight I'd like to get some inspiration and be inspired.
Kia ora, everybody. My name's John Hemme. I'm a lead advisor commercial for Te Waihanga, the New Zealand Infrastructure Commission, and also on the board of the Building Institute Aotearoa. I'm really keen to tease out the tension between high performance and high achievers versus the teamwork dynamic. So I'm quite interested in hearing how that progresses in the second half and the stories from our panelists in the first half. Thanks.
Hi there. Hi, I'm Lindsay Hume. I work for Hatch Consulting and I'm a senior quantity surveyor for them. I'm just really looking forward to listening to you guys and hearing your experiences in the second half. Sounds pretty awesome too.
My name's Kingsley Tam. I work at Pacific Commissioning. I'm a senior associate, so I want to learn from other people's experience and just networking as well.
Hello team, this is Rasim. I'm a senior associate with Pacific, servicing the Waikato and Bay of Plenty regions. I'm here to meet you guys and learn about your experience.
Hello, Andrew Kearney, also from Pacific Commissioning. I'm Technical Director for the Auckland office, and I also sit on the Institute Northern Committee. Really looking forward to hear what you guys have got to say and some of the things that we can hopefully take away and apply. Looking forward to it.
Hi all, I'm Bindu, Associate at Frequency. Just keen to learn from everyone's experience, to get some experience regarding combining contractors and leading a team to drive to a common goal for success.
Hi all, my name is Boomin. I'm an associate at Frequency in the project controls team. I'm here to learn a bit more on how to work in high pressure environments and delivering good projects and dealing with clients.
Hi, my name's Eman. I'm also an associate at Frequency. I'm in the procurement space. Our team has grown drastically in the last, in a short space of time. So getting as much advice on leadership and management would be helpful. Thank you.
How's it going? Sorry. I'm Jared from Auckland Concrete Grinding. I'm project manager. Just learn anything really. I'm new to project management, so cheers.
Hi, I'm Scott Peterson from Auckland Concrete Grinding as well. New owner just took over, so wanted to get us in front of people to let them know that we're around and stuff like that. And I'm want to learn about team management stuff. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Phoebe. I'm from RCP. I'm actually in HR, and I'm hoping to get some elements to add to our manager competency framework. Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm David Backus, a Senior Associate at Frequency. I'm keen to learn today how to work with a team, particularly during times of uncertainty, as I'm starting to grow a team myself at Frequency.
Hey everyone, Emilio at Frequency as a project manager, looking to see how to instill calmness and clarity amongst the chaos.
Hi, I'm Craig Wallace from Carter's, Business Development Manager. We're obviously a sponsor, so here to support everyone and hopefully get some sales.
Hi, I'm Stefan Furry from Ryder Livet Bucko. I'm an Associate Director. I hope to get some golden nuggets today that I can use in my day-to-day team management.
Hi, I'm Matt from Legacy Construction, Project Manager. We got a kind of late invite, much like some people here, but keen to take some good lessons back to the team and pass all the knowledge on.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I am a quantity surveyor at Legacy Construction, and I'm just hoping I can take away some tools for the rest of my career.
Hey, I'm Paul Barker, GM for Generation Homes, Auckland South. Yeah, just keen to take on board any new info today. It would be fantastic.
I'm Scott Duncan from Generation Homes, Waikato. I've got a mixed team of age groups and cultures, and so I'll be keen to learn some different ways to try and get one to actually work together.
Hey, I'm Senthil, Associate Director from RLB. As you all know, the market is too volatile, and we are losing some of the high-skilled people across the ditch, and just want to know and understand how to keep the team motivated, not just only within the organization, wider industry, including the contractors and supply chain. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Marsh. I run the hub here. And probably the most important thing you need to know is that there will be beer and wine on us at the end of the event. And my mate up there, she's told me to say that. So she didn't want to drink on her own. I'll pass you over to these three who've missed out. That's for you too, Sam.
Well, I'm Mark. I'm here talking today on the second part of the session. It's really cool to hear that what you're here for. I guess my part's really to actually draw some knowledge out of you as well. And so it'll be really cool just to see where you're at, and if we can fill some gaps, it'll be awesome. So, but it's cool to be here. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm a marketing lead for the Building Institute, and I'm here to support the events.
Hi, I'm Sam Lomax. And I'm here just keen to see the different types of leadership skills and management skills that the team on stage and have to bring, and see what I can get out of it. Thank you.
Kia ora, everybody. That was awesome, and really interested to see there's such a diverse range of different roles and positions within the audience. So awesome. Now, I was told today that I was going to basically get up here and talk to you about my story, and I've got 15 minutes. So I really want to make sure that I don't sort of go over and bore the hell out of you all. First of all, I've just got to say I am actually pretty tired. I actually got home last night at 1:30 in the morning from being on site working with a nail gun, and that was because we had one of our sites doing night works, and our labour hire didn't turn up. And so myself and my business partner were in the office working actually on our board report, and we got a phone call to say that the labour hire hadn't turned up. So we chucked on our ink t-shirts, steel cap boots, and this was us at about midnight last night. Building a wall in one of our fit out projects that we're working on. So I apologise if I'm a little bit kind of sleepy today. So basically, I've been in the industry now for over 20 years, which scares the hell out of me when you say that. And people sort of say to me, and I'm now a new business owner, so I started a construction company in February this year. And people say to me, how did you get into construction? 20 years ago, there wasn't many women in the industry. And, you've had to probably go through a bit of adversity and some sort of challenging times in my career progression. And I sort of put it down to, I was very fortunate enough that I grew up on a farm just outside of Taupo. And this is me and my dad. And unfortunately, my dad didn't have any sons. He only had 2 daughters. And I was the youngest. So I got brought up as his boy, basically. So I would go fishing, I would go hunting. This is us in the Kaimanawa Ranges in a bush hut, about to go fishing. And one thing that Dad taught me is, and please don't take this as me waving the whole woman thing, it was, don't let anybody tell you can't do something because you're a girl. And it came from, we used to enter in these claybird father and son competitions where we used to go claybird shooting, and they were only father and son competitions. And one year Dad and I rocked up, I was thinking about 8 years old, and they said, "Oh, Roger, sorry, it's father and son competition." He's like, "Well, this is all I've got." And they were like, "Okay, I suppose we'll let you shoot." And basically for 3 years in a row we won, and we beat all these quite high profile dairy farmers in our area. But anyway, so I was very fortunate growing up. I can gut a deer in 10 minutes, which I'm quite proud of. But I was very fortunate coming from a family where it was, you can do whatever you want, you can be who you want, and you can give anything a crack, so to speak. And so, that's my grandmother, my Nanny Peg, who was an amazing role model for me. And she distilled in me that you just you just keep pushing, basically, to do what you want. So in the early days when I started my career, I actually moved over to Australia. So I got my interior design here, and I ended up working for a commercial furniture company, and I got transferred over to Australia. And while I was in Australia, I got kind of a bit sick of commercial interiors, and I thought, what's something else that I can do that's a little bit more challenging and a bit more interesting. And so I did my construction management while I was working full time, and I started working for a really large construction company over in Sydney called Taylor Construction, and they hired me as their business development manager. So they were $1 billion construction company. And essentially they brought me on to sort of diversify their portfolio. Now, I was on the senior leadership team, and that senior leadership team was 12 of us, and 11 of them were men, which was totally fine. But that was a really interesting defining moment where it was, for the first 3 months, we had a leadership meeting every 2 weeks, and the first 3 months, and it didn't help that I had hair like that, and I have to admit, like blonde peroxide hair, I mean, I'm asking for it, right? Like, you don't really work in a construction company and have hair like that. Anyway, so I turned up to these senior leadership meetings, and for the first 3 months I didn't get talked to. They would skip me every time. It was the operations manager, it was the construction manager, it was the fit out manager, and they literally would skip me for 3 months. And it was just like, wow, is this really, like, come on now? And it was more that they didn't really understand how to include me into the team, because I was the only woman. And this was one of our conference days that we went to, and it was sort of like this moment where yeah, I mean, I had no issue with being in a room full of men. I was used to growing up on a farm and doing boy stuff, but it was just this whole kind of like, wow, I'm really am the only one here. This is crazy, you know. But it was really good because it gave me that kind of purpose around not trying to prove a point, but just around that kind of grit and to keep going and to keep pushing and to just hang in there. And what happened was we actually bid on a project and we actually won it, which was really the moment, I guess, that the senior leadership team I earned my respect, and that was the refurbishment of the Sydney Opera House, and that was a $200 million refurbishment. And that was the day of me ringing the bell when we'd won it. And then obviously you also know what the Sydney Opera House is. And that was the first night that I was in the building when we were on site, and the site guys were moving in to set up our site office on the level below. And that was the moment that within that organisation they sort of said, oh, wow, we kind of better respect, but sort of earned my respect. And yeah, it was an incredible project. It still is to this day probably one of my high profile projects. Every time I go back to Sydney, I go up to it and I rub the outside of it and I'm like, hey girl, how are ya? So yeah, it was this moment of going into an industry that was, male dominated, and having to really earn my keep, or show why I sort of had to work really hard to kind of prove that I could do this, and I guess that was the reason of sort of the early days of, like, not only did you have to sort of earn your keep, but then you had to sort of go, well, now I've established that I belong here, but now I've established that I want to be a leader in this industry, and so I fell pregnant with my first daughter, and I decided that I didn't want to raise her in Australia. I didn't want her to be an Aussie. So I bought, my husband and we moved back home, and I started working in construction in New Zealand, and that was 7.5 years ago. So Commercial Bay was just coming out of the ground at the time, and it was really interesting coming back from Australia, being over there for 10 years, and coming back from Australia, and I felt like it was sort of going back in time, coming back to New Zealand construction. It was sort of like, wow, we've got a bit more work here to do to be a bit more progressive in construction here. And so I was very fortunate in the fact that I worked at various construction companies, and I was able to work in a cross sector of interiors, and then went to a large construction company by the name of Savory. And while I was at Savory, they were a really fantastic company in the fact that they'd been around for 83 years, and they were a really well-established brand company, and they really, I guess for me, got behind me. And one of the key points I think today that I need to sort of, I'd like to sort of share, was that if you can find a company that you're working for and you've got people that really back you, that is hugely valuable. If you've got a cheer squad, you can just go so far when you've got people really supporting you. When you're siloed and when you're left to kind of try and like survive and show your keep, then it's really hard to kind of progress forward. And so I was very fortunate when I was at Savory. I became a director, the first female director in 83 years, and that was a real honour, going to a big construction company and having to sit at the table. And they probably regret it now because I sort of came to the board table and sort of opened their eyes a little bit around different thinking, and thinking a bit progressive around innovation, around being a bit more diverse, around how we can make change within this construction sector, and how we're such an awesome little country and so innovative, and yet the construction sector is still quite stale, what I sort of thought it was. So yeah, that was awesome. Got to work in the team there, and was able to do my Institute of Directors course with IOD, which was really gave me some really good tools and skill sets around taking different hats off as far as being a leader, being a manager, being a board member, being a director, and thinking, you got to put your hat on and literally think about the business, not from a person in the business. So that was really, really good learning. And it was during my time when I was at Savory that I was able to meet my now business partner, Sam Lomax, who's over there. And we sort of got to this point where we were like, well, I got to this point where it was like, okay, I've done really well, and I'm a director of this company, and they were a great company, but it was just like, for me to really make change what I wanted to do in the industry, and for the time that I wanted to do it in, I thought the only way we're going to do this is start something of our own. And so we left the business and we started our own construction company in February this year. Really good time to start a construction company in a downturn. Highly recommend it. And the strategy that we had for starting Inc. was people have told us that we're excuse my language, shit crazy, because we started a construction company in a downturn. We also hired our team before we had any projects. So we hired 8 staff, and that was self-funded construction company as well. So we basically hired this team, paying salaries, had no projects, and was like, let's take the risk here and try and be a different construction company. So yeah, that was, I guess, sorry, back. Sorry, I've gone one forward, one slide. But so while I was sort of building out while I was at Savory, I was really passionate about working with growing more, encouraging more kids and more women and more diverse people into the industry. I love going out to schools. So I speak at Epsom Girls Grammar. I've been speaking there for the last 5 years to encourage more girls into construction. I go out to primary schools. I also go out to high schools, talking to everybody around construction sector and how awesome it is, and how there's so many different various roles within the division, within the sector. And it's amazing, like these kids just like, oh, so you don't just have to wear a hard hat and high vis and work on site. It's like, no, you can be a quantity surveyor, you can be a project manager, you can be a, you can be a lift crane driver if you want to, like there's so many various roles. And that's the thing, like people go, oh, if I only knew at high school or during school that this is what all these different opportunities, then I probably would get into consider construction. And I've actually met with Christopher Pink in the last few months and said we need to do an education program within schools to show these kids, because Lego, right? Lego is the start of construction. It's our first, I guess, counter with building things. And so for me, it's like getting these kids to understand like Lego, construction, building, and saying, to mum and dad, hey, I want to go and be a crane driver, or I want to go and be a project manager, and then going, oh yes, sonny boy, no, you're going to be a doctor. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with being a crane driver or a site manager, And so there's that whole stigma around construction and the opportunities. So yeah, I do a lot of work with schools, and I also am very passionate about ESG, sustainability within construction. So yeah, I sort of jumped a bit forward there. So yeah, going back to Inc. So we started Inc. And it was really about trying to do something a bit differently, as far as down to even, I know it sounds really silly, the brand colour, for example. We've gone with this burgundy colour, which is not typical construction. Typical construction is kind of blue, black, white. There's a red, there's an orange, which I think we know who those companies are. And it was just, don't get me wrong, that's totally fine, but it was just about we're trying to be a bit more progressive and show a little bit more innovation. And around that, which sounds really silly, but Inc. comes from to include, to be inclusive, and to incorporate. And so to include means it's all about our team. And so when I talk about we hired those 8 people, we picked those 8 people that we wanted. And now today we've got 14, which still blows my mind. So in 8 months we've got now 14 staff. But it was about the people that we wanted, and we went and handpicked this team because we knew that they were the best in the industry, and it wasn't just about us starting a business and making money and having a construction company. It was about our team working together and being just as important as, like, our site manager is just as important as the director, and that the project manager is just as important as the quantity surveyor. And it was like we're all there to do our role, we're all there to have our positions and our team, and that was, I guess, something that was a little bit different. Was instead of starting a company and getting a project and then going hiring people to deliver that job, we actually picked the people first, and we were very fortunate that they all came. The people that we shoulder tapped, they all came to us. And one of the people that came to us had been at their company for 29 years prior to coming to Inc. And so yeah, we're really proud of our team. We really honour our team, and we really empower our team. And for us, that was the first group there. And we're quite a bit of an ugly looking bunch, I guess. But we've got such a diverse range of skill set there. So George in the black, he's actually a master's degree in architecture, but he does all my marketing, which is a bit random, right? He's not got a marketing degree, but he does all my branding, all my tender submissions, all my everything that you see of Inc. on a brand or image or anything, social media. George does that. And then we've got Caleb, Todd, myself, Sam. Josh is our QS. Jodie, who's our office manager, she was involved in Manawa Bay and Commercial Bay in the project team for that. So she's now the office manager, but she's got probably more construction experience than most of our team, which was really interesting. And then Chris Harrison, the guy that looks quite scary in the end with the beard and the tattoos, he's the softest teddy bear guy you've ever met in your life, and probably one of the best site managers in town for interiors project, and worked on every big interior complicated project in town. We did Becca. He's done Pacifica Penthouses at the top floor. We did Oricon, which was the first CLT timber stair. So he is incredibly good at his job. So that was Starting Inc. And a part of Starting Inc., I guess for us, it was, as I said, it's to be inclusive, to include and to incorporate. And it was around not only we've got this great team, we also want to make really good impact within the industry. And we, again, when I talked to Epsom Girls Grammar, so we had recently a group of schoolgirls who I went and spoke to at their school on their careers day, and then there was a page of 25 girls. I was so stoked. Page of 25 girls that put their name down wanting to learn more about construction. And so we actually bus loaded that group into our office and showed them one of our sites that we were currently working on. And there was this moment of going, oh my God, when we walked onto the site and these girls were wearing my high vis and it had my logo on it. And now I've got this group of girls coming in wanting to get into construction. And I was just like, I've actually burst into tears, and I know that sounds a bit lame, but I was just like, this is it. Like, we're actually doing good here. This is changing the industry and making an impact. So that was a really cool moment for us. And then Waikato Tainui, so I'm a Waikato Tainui tribal member. So we've partnered with the iwi, and we're offering apprenticeship program within the iwi. So that means that we've got an iwi apprentice, and we actually just started 2 weeks ago. His name's Athol. And we're doing a 3-month work experience program, and then if he wants to continue in construction, we're going to get him to be an apprentice carpenter. And the reason that we're doing with the iwi is, I don't know if we know Tainui Group Holdings, big property arm, and they are all about supporting the iwi within businesses. And so for us, it's like, let's build your projects, and then let's train the iwi as well while we're building it. So it's that whole full circle end-to-end opportunity where we go, we're building it, we're qualifying your people, and now they can then get on and build the projects for you. So that kind of like teach the man to fish kind of thing. That's our aim with Waikato Tainui. Gosh, I'm just getting a bit bored. Going back to the team. So it's empowering our team. As you know, as I said, Sam and I are not the directors, and we're the big bosses, and that's us, and we that's how we operate. For us, it's really empowering our staff, and for our staff to really do well and to exceed and to celebrate that. And so we get a real kick off our team when they get recognised. So last Friday night, George in the middle there, he won a gold pin at the Best Awards for his sculpture that he built at Brick Bay, and he. Again, we celebrated the fact that he got recognised in that. Chris Harrison, again, he got Site Manager of the Year special mention at the Building Awards this year. And then Caleb Kennedy got runner-up in the Project Management of the Year for his project for Oricon. So for us, success is not us having lots of money in the bank and winning all the biggest, nice, exciting projects. Success is seeing our people do really well. That gives me more joy. And on Friday night, when George got announced as the gold pin winner, we had all these party poppers and we popped them all at our table. We were the only table that did it because we were so proud of his accomplishment. And so I think it's a really, for us as leaders, it's not about, as I said, the money, the fancy cars we might drive or anything like that. It's about seeing our own people succeed and doing really well. So that's a little bit about my story. And I guess, so for us, I guess I sort of just wrote down a few things that I thought, what does leadership look like? And for me, as I said, I'm kind of not the normal person, like being, woman, working in now 50% owner of a construction company. So how do you sort of get there? And for me, it's really important to be authentic and be morally, like, just channel who you are, and that will come out. Don't try and be something that your business that you're trying to it's not authentic. It's very obvious when a company's not being authentic. So for me, it's just like really focus on your people. Conservation of energy. So for me, that's really important. Like, you can go around and really have meetings with lots of different people and do this and do that, and it's just, it's great because you're busy, but it's like really channel in on really important stuff to you, because your time is really precious. And even with like Sam and I, like the amount of stuff that we have going on, writing board reports on site, having coffees with clients, then going, you know, you just really got to shut out some noise sometimes and just really focus on your main purpose and what you're trying to do, and just giving that time. Don't worry about doing everything, and then keeping grounded, knowing what you're doing it for. And so, yeah, my main purpose for me is that I've now got 2 beautiful young girls, 8 and 3, and for me, they're my constant reminder of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And 5 more minutes. Oh, I'm going to finish before then, so that's good. And yeah, just having a purpose of why you get up out of bed. And that was before, when I started out in the industry, it was my purpose is that I really want to make a difference for women in construction. And now that's ultimately changed into I'm doing it for my girls to show that mum gave it a crack. Mum may be bankrupt in 2 years, but hey, I mean, that's, you know, at least I can say I gave it a nudge. And yeah, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you the 5 pillars of leadership or management or, you know, all that stuff. You can go and find that online, and especially with AI now. But yeah, I guess if there's anything you can take away from my story and hold on to, then hopefully that's helped. So yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. In that little script I got added at the end, I forgot to give you all the health and safety briefing, which is fire exits are there and the door you came in through, and toilets are just down there on your left. If the alarm goes off, follow me, because I'll be running out first. Do you want to stay up, or do you want to? Yeah, you can do, but thank you very much, Marissa. And yeah, and we will hand over to Isaac and Hannah.
Cheers, thanks, Marissa. Known you for a little while now, but didn't know almost any of that story, so really really inspirational. And I was in the Oricon office earlier today. Everyone there says how wonderful it is, so did a good job. So Hannah and I are pleased to be able to share a little bit about P2P, the Papakura to Pukekohe electrification project. We were speaking earlier that this is the most exciting and challenging project of our careers, so it's really nice to be able to sort of open the door a little bit about some of the things that we did. Just a couple of bullet points on the screen. We're just going to share what the scope of the project was, and that'll be pretty brief, and then we'll just dive into actually what were the leadership things that we did on the actual project itself. A little bit of blend of a couple of leadership models and actually how they kind of worked on the project, so hopefully you got something to take away with you.
Okay, so the Papakura to Pukekohe electrification project is, at a high level, 20 kilometres of new overhead line equipment. So basically, before our project, if you wanted to catch a train down to Pukekohe, you would catch one of the lovely, what we call electric multiple units, or EMUs, down to Papakura, where you would change to one of our diesel trains. This obviously has, you know, inconvenience for commuters of changing trains, and also sustainability. Diesel trains put more diesel into the air, and electric trains are quieter, faster, better for the environment. So the end result of our project was the top picture there became the bottom picture at the bottom. So 20 kilometres, which you see on the map there. Now, that's what most people will know our project for, but we also delivered a bunch of other upgrades. So at the Pukekohe station, we did a bunch of redevelopments. What you can see on the screen there is the hive of our biggest block of line, which is where we get in when trains are stopped, and we do a bunch of work. So that's Pukekohe station. Isaac, if you want to go to the next one. This was a major redevelopment of the station. Isaac, do you want to give us highlights of the redevelopment?
Sure, this one here. What this one is actually showing is some of Counties Energy high voltage lines used to string across the top of the station, which would get really close to where the new overhead lines were going. So had to bring in the big cranes, new pylons, lift those wires up to a higher elevation. But you can see at ground level there's not much there at the moment. The existing Pukekohe station was demolished and rebuilt from scratch.
Awesome. We also put in a bunch of new track assets. So what you see there is a scissors crossover. This basically allows trains to move between tracks on either track in either direction, which is quite a special piece of kit. We also installed a completely new signalling system for the 20 kilometres. including ETCS, which is a safety upgrade in our signalling system where the trains talk to the signals, which talks back to our train control system. And I love this slide. It's probably one of my favourite photos from the project, and I'm a little bit biased because this is what I was responsible for. We have the new overhead line equipment, which is what powers the new electric trains. And finally, Pukekohe Station, which was more of Isaac's baby, in all its new beautiful glory.
Yeah, very, very lovely photo there too. Skipped ahead too much. One of the sort of complicated and uncertain parts of the project is that kind of relating to the theme of the talk today was around uncertainty. So we got a $385 million project over sort of 3 to 4 years. We got halfway through the project and then KiwiRail and the contractors both realized that the contractual arrangements, the way that it was all put together, just wasn't really working for either party. So both parties shook hands, decided to start fresh and try again. And so here you are as client-side project managers halfway through a project with no contractor and no designer, because the designer was reporting to the contractor as well. So that was a hard pivot to go back to square one and go and re-procure everything from the beginning. The next slide you got a brief preview of already is just touching on some of the other team members. It takes a lot of people to run a project like this. There's someone in the audience who was part of the team as well who's not up there because of lack of space. But some of the qualities I'd put to that guy is maintaining himself at really high standards, and this is kind of honoring some of the other team members and some of the qualities that they brought to the team. This is just a placeholder while I introduce what the next few slides are. As I was kind of coming up with the presentation and talking to Hannah about it, we sort of started talking about what did we actually do on P2P. And we didn't kind of want to just get up here and just rattle off a bunch of bullet points at you about specific things we did. Kind of wanted to frame the discussion around something that kind of would help the flow of the conversation or the presentation, give you something to take away with. So having done that, kind of looked through some old trainings and presentations that I'd been in, and I found a model that I thought fit pretty well. So we'll use that to kind of frame the discussion as we go forward. So the model, for anyone who hasn't seen it before, is called Be Braver. It's based around those 4 quadrants there, the courage, clarity, connection, and confidence. And I have a few notes on each of those, or a sentence on each, so I'll just read those out. The courage quadrant: develop the courage to take bold action, make tough decisions, face your fears head on. Connection is building strong, meaningful relationships that foster trust, collaboration, and mutual support. Clarity is developing clarity of purpose and direction, aligning your actions with your values and goals. Confidence is build unshakable confidence in yourself and others. So as we go on, we'll touch on each of those quadrants and some of the sort of subsections around the edge there. But I was actually sharing this with someone a couple of weeks ago that I was going to talk to this, and they said, oh, add all those 4 things together and you also get a bit of certainty as well.
However, it most of the time felt like things were never certain on the P2P project. Things were almost always uncertain. We often changed plans to how we could better deliver something. But one thing that was certain was that change was constant. However, we didn't feel stressed and uncertain all the time in terms of what we were doing. We knew we would get there, and I think the main reason for that was the team that we had and the culture that we had, which was based on, flowing down from the leadership that we had based on this model.
Every presentation requires at least one AI photo, so I put this into AI and it came up with that one. I guess they're certain they'll get to the lighthouse, but maybe their teamwork didn't work if their boat sunk, so not really sure about that one. So starting off with the first quadrant there around clarity, there's a story, not sure if everybody knows it already, but JFK was visiting NASA during the height of the space race with the Soviets, and he came across a janitor and asked what he does. The janitor didn't reply that he sweeps floors and cleans toilets. He says he helps put a man on the moon. So that really speaks to having a strong vision, which we had at P2P.
So we really had kind of 3 key visions on our project. The first was obviously, as I explained earlier, to get electric trains to Pukekohe and to get people onto electric trains down to Pukekohe. The second, which was more of a project team goal and vision, was to do that on time and on budget. A real drive for our team, and was the focus of many meetings. And the third goal and vision was to grow people and to grow the industry and the legacy that we would leave behind. And I like to think that myself, as part of the legacy of that project, my career has grown, and I have learnt so much from that vision that was put forward at the start of the project.
Yeah, that was really clear. So many meetings you're in. Is this going to affect the budget? Is it going to affect us on finishing on time? If it will, then why are we doing it?
And how could we do it differently and better?
It was a super high benchmark. If you wanted to change something or bring something new into the project and it didn't meet that vision, super hard benchmark to try and achieve that. Coming out of that and a few team meetings, we had some values. We'll just quickly share those just to show you what they look like. These were some of the posters that we had on the wall, but you know, each project should probably frame those specific to your project. We didn't end up needing a lot of conversations around these because the project team was just so good anyways, but they're nice there on the wall. If someone was kind of going off track a little bit, you could kind of nod to those and just remind them of what we all signed up to at the start. Also in the clarity quadrant is a couple of the tools that we use to provide clarity. When you've got a 20-kilometre long section of rail line, it's a long, thin project. It's a lot different from having a building on one site that you show up to every day, and then you've got freight trains running through it every 20 minutes. It's there's certainly a lot of complexity there. So on the left is a planning tool called a time chainage. So I'll point out on the left is Papakura, and on the right is Pukekohe. So that's 20 kilometres of rail line condensed into an A3 page at small divisions. Going down the sides of the screen is the timeline. So each shaded colour, each dotted line or solid line, and each bubble there all means something different. So it's a really super clear way to just be able to see everything that's going on all at once with half a dozen different teams all competing for space in the corridor. And you could have this going ahead several months ahead to start planning in advance and just providing super high clarity of what the plan was. How many pages of P6 did you say that was?
Yeah, so just for the OLE program that's shown on there, which is one colour on that time chainage, was 25-page P6 program.
So you can imagine sitting there with 6 different contractors all trying to scroll through their programs to see where they're working on a given day. That just lays it all out for you. On the right was the biggest whiteboard you've ever seen. That was the close-up detail planning when you came up time to construct on the day. So each team, each contractor was responsible for coming up, writing on the board what they were planning to do, and coordinating with anybody else that wanted to write in the same place. Then we'd get together once a week, run through the whiteboard. It was up to the contractors to sort out any problems they had. It wasn't us in the middle of all those conversations trying to fix it for them. So they'd really have to take ownership of solving their problems. But we were there to help out and kind of resolve those clashes when we needed to. And if there was an occasion where I'd have to pull the pin out from someone and say, sorry, you're not working, this other guy's going first, it was there on the board why that was. So kind of minimal complaints if you made it really clear why you were making those tough decisions.
So one of the things that I think helped us so much in terms of communication, particularly because we had so many different contractors but also disciplines working and competing for space, was visual formats of communication. So we had at our site office, Isaac showed a picture of the time chainage on those big whiteboards for planning. This was what I used to call my wall. You can see on there again we had this challenge of how do you represent 20 kilometres worth of site, and all the purple dots that you see on there are the circa 500 OLE foundations that we installed. Visually represented at a glance, a colour represented the status of it. So that photo was taken when all of them were installed. Purple was when it was complete. We had a purple party at the end. And when we got into installing masts and stringing wire went up along there. Really crude sort of way to do it, but people could come and would stand at that wall and would look and would, it's got a sort of image behind it. Really important, being able to, talk to a plan and talk to a picture, we found was immensely helpful. Just the other image there I've got on the slide, a big thing for us when we're in construction on this project was around planning. So I mentioned before that we delivered quite a lot of our works under block of lines. So these are really intense short periods where you might have a couple of days to get in and do a huge amount of work, and you might not get another chance for sort of 6 months to get that kind of access. So when we did our final piece of work for the overhead line install and our commissioning event, we had 3 days, and it was almost down to the minute by minute planning. And so before the block of line, we actually went into the contractor's office. We had our sort of map of the site on the table, and we had pictures, little figurines for all of the pieces of plant, and we went through that minute by minute. What was the plan? What could go wrong? And what would we do about it? That's the kind of planning we were doing.
And the wall even turned 3D with the when the wires got started. There was a string strung along there as well to represent the wires. Let's see if the video works for someone else to have a speak.
So I think the biggest myth about vulnerability is that it's weakness. I think a lot of people were raised to believe that it's modeled in a certain culture. We see that a lot, that to be vulnerable, to be open, to be exposed is to be weak. And the truth is, what I found in my research is that vulnerability is not weakness. In fact, I would argue that it's our greatest measure of courage. When we went out and asked people, what is vulnerability? We heard things like, vulnerability is the first date after my divorce. Vulnerability is starting my own company. Vulnerability is taking responsibility for something that went wrong at work. Vulnerability is sitting with my wife who has stage 3 breast cancer and almost 5 young kids. Vulnerability is taking my business public. The definition I use in my book of vulnerability is simply uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. Vulnerability is about the willingness to show up and to be seen, even when there are no guarantees. And it's interesting to me, I mean, one of the things I thought was really interesting, I gave a talk, probably a couple of years now, and it was being translated by people doing American Sign Language, and they came up with one talk started, and they said, are there any words that you're going to use a lot in your talk that we should know about, that might be different? I said, well, I use the word vulnerability a lot. And they kind of, there were two of them, they kind of looked at each other and they said, oh, we do this for vulnerability. And I said, what does that mean? They said it means weaken the knees. And I'm like, wow, that's not how I talk about vulnerability. And she said, well, there's only one other sign for vulnerability. I said, what is it? And she said, and I said, oh, that's what I'm talking about. And so, to me, vulnerability is our most accurate measure of courage. I mean, it's pretty powerful. I have 13,000 pieces of data collected over 12 years, that I cannot find a single incident or story of courage that was not completely underpinned by vulnerability. I think the problem arises in that there's so many little paradoxes with vulnerability. One of them is that vulnerability is courage in you, but weakness in me. When I meet you, first thing I look for in you, but it's the last thing I want to show you. And so I think to really put ourselves out there, knowing that if we do that enough, we're going to fail, I just don't think it's more courageous than that.
So on P2P, we had a little bit of a running joke around the sort of style, we had this joke of, oh, we'll throw you in the deep end and we'll see if you can swim. And I started on the project, I just joined KiwiRail and was in KiwiRail's graduate program, so not long out of university.
With an environmental engineering degree?
Yes, with an environmental engineering degree. No experience in rail, other than a sort of family passion and a little bit of family history. And I joined this project and, you know, slowly started to figure out what was going on. And then my boss at the time was like, okay, cool, let's throw you in the deep end and see if you can swim. One of the things that I sort of learned over the course of P2P was about courage, but also about vulnerability. We very much were supported and offered opportunities to do things, encouraged to say yes. You weren't penalised if you said no. And I found myself saying yes because I felt supported. I felt like, you know, if it didn't go so well, that was okay. And the more I said yes, the more my courage grew. My first thought when Isaac asked me to come and do this with him was still, oh God, I don't want to do that. But it was easier to say yes. So that's just a little bit about courage.
Cool, thanks, Anna. So we've covered off clarity and courage in the top there, and now we're going on to connection. So we had an earlier one of these slides for the original 70s crew, and then it evolved into the next generation during the second half of the project. It's just a slide to talk to about setting clear roles. So for us, setting clear roles wasn't just, oh, you're the project manager for OLE or I'm the project manager for Pukekohe. It was really about the outcome. It's like you must deliver this thing by this date on budget safely, and you will do whatever you need to do to make it happen. It wasn't just, here's your budget, or hey, go check with this guy every time you want to do something. It's like, no, just go do whatever you need to do. And our project director really sheltered us from any sort of outside flack. In terms of what level of decisions you can make, I'm on some projects where that's written down, you know, you can spend up to 50 grand or whatever it is. We didn't have that on this project. We kind of just found our way organically. Started off small and got bigger and bigger as the project director got more and more confidence. In the end, I'm spending 100 grand on this thing. He's like, so why are you telling me? Just go do it. So kind of that's just around delegated levels of authority and really sort of letting your people own it. Let me just check my notes. Decision making. So yeah, as I just said, we can make a lot of decisions around what we need to do to deliver our work. But if we feel like it's just a little bit too high, we had heaps of access to the project director to make decisions. So 3-4 times a week there'd be a half-hour meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning. Everybody gets together, goes around the circle. If you want to make a big decision about something but you're not really sure, this is the chance for everybody to have their say if it's going to impact on them or not. If you didn't show up or you didn't have anything to say and the decision was made, too bad, you have to live with it now. So really clear decision making.
The only other thing I would add is that if your decision that you needed to make was going to potentially impact another discipline on the project, it was that sort of forum was set up so that we could discuss those. And so that was one of the key touch points of how we managed complexity on the project, was making sure we were constantly letting others know about what we were doing. One of the things about rail is that it's a really integrated system, and so none of it really works if it doesn't all work together.
Connection, some of the human aspect of looking after the team. It's written about quite a lot about the meals that came in, so that's the top right, and bottom left is some slow cookers coming in to warm people up. You can tell from the building there that there wasn't much insulation to keep us warm. And then our friend Kathy brought in the cake from her favourite baker.
One of the other things that we had a lot of people working on the project, and it was a long project. So us as the project team, part of our responsibility was caring for everyone that was on the project, keeping everyone safe and keeping everyone motivated. So you'll see there we had one of our monthly safety toolboxes, which were interactive. If someone was looking at their phone, you weren't doing it right. We also had a lot of things like barbecues, giving back, thanking the guys, and we would do that ourselves, not someone come in and do that barbecue. As you can see there, we've got Angus and Andy there, who were project managers on the tongs. Things like food and water, which is kind of standard, but we often work on weekends and public holidays in rail, and so you can see up the top there, I was the Easter bunny. I probably walked 15 kilometres that day, but nearly everyone on site got an Easter egg, and I was happy about that. Ice blocks in the summer, you know, it gets really darn hot. We had a couple of heat fatigue incidents, and so we just went, well, let's make sure everyone gets an ice block. And so we came kind of famous in KiwiRail in our block alliance for, if you go down to P2P, you'll probably get an ice block.
There was a freezer stocked with a few hundred of them at any one time, because during the 2021 Christmas, there were 600 people working on the alignment over Christmas, so that takes a lot of time to go out hand ice blocks. But the real benefit of it is that you actually get to see each person individually, say thanks to them, and give them juicies were the most popular. Some people would go away with a box of those each if they could. Going into the last quadrant there is confidence, and the smaller writing you can't see says experience and expertise. So this is one for myself. There's a particular method that I like for efficient construction of pavements, and I said, hey, why aren't we using this here? Let's set up a trial. So that's going on the bottom left there, and the outcomes on the bottom right. And it got pretty close. It kind of got 80-90% there. So here's a couple of photos of that method in operation. So this saves about 25% of cost and about 50% on aggregates. So ended up being quite successful. The reason I mention this one specifically is because when the judges were adding up the scores, they gave extra points for kind of pushing the engineers to get an outcome that they didn't originally want.
Isaac forgot to mention that the cement stabilisation was something that he had in his experience and was something that he brought to the project. So Isaac kind of came in with lots of experience, and I started with not a huge amount. So this for me was a project about learning, and I just wanted to touch a little bit on how you can do that, how you can gain experience. It's a little bit of a different perspective. One of my biggest sort of recommendations is to get out on site, to get out and talk to the people doing the work. If that means going out on weekends and standing in the rain with puddles in your pockets, then you do it. And I have learned an incredible amount in the time that I've been at KiwiRail. Those two guys up there, I spent many a Sunday up in the we've got that scissor lift truck, inspecting the OLE to get it ready and make sure that it was safe to energise. And I feel very privileged to have learnt from so many experienced people, but that was something that P2P did really well. All the people that seemed to work on that project were really keen to share their knowledge, and it was really wonderful to be able to learn and grow so much through that process.
So for my last couple of slides, I'm kind of bringing it all together. While we were preparing for this presentation, I actually asked Hannah, so I'm dealing with the people and the team, what did I actually do? So not the sort of tools and stuff, whiteboards, etc. presented here, but how did I actually look after the team? That was a good approach. And what Hannah told me, I wrote it down at the time, was I provided mentoring and clear direction with those that needed it, approachable with no agenda other than to help. So I was able to transition into more of a sounding board without judgment, shared knowledge when needed, recognized when someone was under pressure, recognized when pressure was growing on specific team members, followed through with doing what I said I would and being on site there to show passion about the project. So thanks, Hannah. But I thought about those comments, and then I kind of same approach again. I thought, how can those comments fit into a little model for how to deal with team members, just to kind of simplify a thought process for anyone who's new at it. And I kind of, this is a little example of our ingenuity. In-person meeting, but this guy's someone's on Teams, so this guy's balancing a laptop there so that he can participate as well. So yeah, I thought, how can I fit that into a model that's actually like gives you a bit of a thought process? And that's, anyone seen this model before, situational leadership? Hopefully it's not old news for most of you. I mean, it is an old model, but it kind of works for simplifying the approach that I took. So basically, as a leader, you're thinking about your team, you're putting them into one of 4 boxes, which doesn't sound right for a sort of a PC approach, but at least it gives you a bit of clarity in your thinking. And then as a leader, you decide, do I need to be more directive with this person or more supportive, more or less? So the first place that you start is a new team member or a new beginner who's fresh on the job. So enthusiastic beginner doesn't have a lot of skills, but in theory they should be highly motivated to learn and do well on the project. So that's more of a directive approach that you take if they're fitting in that box there. So you're kind of giving them more clear instructions, not letting them run off on their own. I mean, Hannah's spoken about in the deep end, but I guess a lot of the time you might want to get to know the person first, build up a bit of a rapport with them. In theory, at least according to this model, although it didn't really happen too much on P2P, is then the person kind of moves up into this box up here, where they still haven't got a lot of experience, but maybe they're getting a little bit demoralized about things aren't going so well, or they got so much to learn. So if you can kind of identify someone that fits into that box, they need a bit more of the sort of emotional support and communication and sort of motivation, as well as direction. So that's kind of more of a coaching approach there. What kind of happened in P2P though is people tended to skip straight to this box where now they're starting to get a lot of experience really quickly, but so they've got a lot of competence, but they maybe just haven't got that confidence yet. So this is just about supporting the person, looking after their emotional needs, helping them build confidence, and less about actually giving them definitive instructions. And the last one, when they're a self-reliant achiever, now you can just really say, hey, I need this task done. Go, please do it. Come back to me in 3 days, and it's all up to them at that point. So there's a lot of writing about this. You can research it online if you want to get into the detail, but it kind of just was framed the approach in the way that Hannah described what I did, where dealing with a lot of people in S1 and then changing my approach as they moved through sort of S3 and S4.
We used to joke that being on P2P, 1 year on P2P was like a dog year, equated to sort of 7 years experience out on a regular run-of-the-mill project. All right. So I think one of the reasons why people in our team kind of skipped that second stage really was around the culture that we had. This for me is probably the closest that I've come to in terms of what I sort of saw as the leadership style that we had on the project, and also something that's really resonated with me, and I'm sort of taking forward now as I move into a space where we're building teams on new projects. So this is around a caring leadership style. We used to speak a lot on P2P about what were the vibes, and always sort of checking in and taking a pulse of the team and how's everyone feeling. You need to do that on a project that's 4 years long, particularly as we're getting towards the end, and checking in and how's everyone doing. It really was quite important, and I think we're about 6 months out from the end of the project, and you could see that everyone was starting to get a bit tired. Things, the vibe wasn't quite what it normally was, and so we had a bit of a reset day and got everyone together, and it helped and it improved. And I think this kind of leadership style promotes people really feeling valued and motivated. We were all really aligned on our project's purpose, and that really boosted motivation and engagement, and I think that's partly why most people sort of moved through. And also we found that this really looked after us and kept us going on this really complex and often quite uncertain project.
as I share a last slide, which is just some of the photos of some of the fun stuff we did. Paint and sip, sausage sizzles, clay molding, and we also did like escape rooms and a couple other things. We had lots of fun with the people that were there, and then we're celebrating our final train ride when everything was opened. But one thing we didn't touch on yet was that $385 million project, finished on time and $3 million under budget.
Not quite sure, but
yeah, I think that's what I heard the other day. So so really successful around. That's our story. So thanks for listening.
All right, guys. So we're just about to get into Mark Watson's session, which is going to be an interactive session. Just quickly before Mark starts, I know Marissa just said she's got to go and do school pickup. So. There you go. But thank you very much, Marissa. Thank you. Cheers.
Cool. Hey, great to be here. Pretty excited about this session. It's where we start to do a little bit of interaction. I guess the big part with it is just really about learning. I guess for us, one thing in my background, I actually started out in engineering. I was in switchgear protection engineering. So we did, when I went over to London lived over there for about 5 years, worked for a company called Mitsubishi Electric. We built power stations over in Kuwait and Egypt. So they were it was really cool. It's top of the line sort of protection switchgear. It was gas insulated. So it was right from generation right through to distribution. So it was massive. And but how I got into it was the fact that I was into computer-aided design. I started my career as a draftsman straight from school. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was really quite good at drawing at school, and the careers officer of the day said, "Oh, you should go into tech drawing then." And so I did. But I ended up doing telecommunications because there was a cadetship that they just offered through the government work schemes, those sort of things that were in place then. So absolutely hated it. It wasn't putting circuit boards together on white light on a light table was just the most demoralizing thing. I really wanted to do the architecture side. That was what I was really cool at school, but didn't get that opportunity. And I think, one of the things that I think when we look at what this subject's about is, I think change is just inevitable in our life. It's happening all the time, and you guys would be really sort of familiar with it in the sense of your own careers, your own lives. There's twists and turns, things happen that quite often that we may have control over or we don't have control over. But the biggest thing within it is actually how we respond to it. And so as my career went on, really cool time in engineering. And then I got ME. So health went to bits. And real hard decision to come back from London to New Zealand, but it was the right decision because we're a lot cleaner this country than what it is over living in the middle of London. So ended up back here and basically brought my kids up. We had a son and a daughter. The son was ahead when we were living in London, and had a daughter over here. Spent about 7 years to get on top of ME. So spent a lot of time outside with them, which was fantastic, and sort of had a lifestyle that was pretty cool. Just looking after them, even though you had to deal with whatever was going on in my internal self. And then it was, okay, I've had a big time to think. So 7 years is pretty big in your life about how you're going to make change and where you're going. And so it was a change to sport, because it had always been a constant in my life. I absolutely loved it. I'd coached for a long time. I was an athlete. And so I got my first job as a sports coordinator as a way back into the workforce. It was a part-time role, and it allowed me to just interact again, I guess. That whole connection piece became really big. After that, had another break to get through into, I guess, into a national sporting organisation. So somehow got to be a national coaching director of Canoe Racing New Zealand. And that was the start of, again, when change happens, it introduced me to other people. So this connection piece starts to come into it a little bit more. And through that opportunity there, started to put in a whole lot of systems and processes about how we can transition athletes from an entry level right through to the high performance level. And that was a fascinating journey in itself. And then the funding for that sport went, and so the two employees that we had there at the time, myself and another person, had to go and find another work somewhere. So I ended up at Sport Wellington, which was more as a coaching coordinator, and ended up doing a general amount of work across sporting systems. And that's probably where I got the systems thinking sort of training from. I was lucky enough to get onto a Sport New Zealand program that gave me 3 years of systems thinking experience. And in that time, we started to redevelop the whole how you learn. And at that stage, it was always just passed on legacy of past coaches. So we were coaching coaches, setting up sporting systems that allowed athletes to get really good at what they could do, so we could retain them long enough so that they could get good. And so it went to areas that is not sport, and it was fascinating just to see how people responded to that. It's coaches starting to have to look at things other than their technical and tactical skills. They actually had to develop the soft skills to actually be able to relate. How do I get the best out of somebody? And you know, when we look at, I guess when I come back to what I was saying at the beginning, that change is inevitable. The thing that's really important with it is actually how we respond to it. And this is why the soft skills was something that never happened in sport. And it's sort of why I'm doing what I'm doing now, is because I sort of learned a number of these things, that how you can have a massive impact on people. And so it is about performing. You need to be able to relate, and you need to stay well. And you don't need to probably be a sports person to hear some of the news at times, and high performance sport can be pretty brutal on people. A lot of my work went into talent development, so that's where we're sort of working. We're trying to help young athletes be prepared to be able to deal with what life's going to present to them. And so there were a lot of and the fact with that, or so they could deal with what this high performance environment was going to deal with them. And it's really interesting just watching New Zealand netball right now, what they're going through, and how there's a big player power thing going on there. And you know, whatever's going on is going on, but it's real in those people's lives, because they've got dreams, they've got visions. You know, I've heard a lot about having a vision today and sticking with it. This is what these young people have got as well. But a lot of the time, they're not equipped with the skills to actually deal with what life's going to present to them. And I guess that's where we come into this, just through managing complexity and change, and you know, things that what can we actually control, and how we get clear on those sorts of things. So so this is just, I'm just going to give you a little bit of an insight into how it can work, and then we go into this interactive stuff. So with you all there, you've got we're going to do some scenarios that are things that you would possibly come up against in your working environments. You might not have to be a leader of a team to understand them, but you can be part of a team. You would feel these things, and yeah, it's hopefully we can have a bit of fun with that. So, and I think, you know, learning is, you know, undoubtedly it's your personal responsibility. I mean, what I say, what Isaac said, and Marissa said today, you know, that's our knowledge, and it's really just information to you. It's not until we take it in and put it in and we personalize it and put it into ourselves and then do something with it that it then becomes your knowledge. And so I just really encourage you to think like that. That was one of the big transitions that we had to do with coaches and athletes, is that it's real easy for them to have this power sort of game going on that, you know, I'm the coach, I'm the selector, so they try and do what you want. But actually what happens over a period of time is they actually lose control, and there are so many athletes who come out with mental health issues that come out of the sporting system. And, you know, in the work that I do now, I'm seeing it in your industry big time. People are suffering out there, and it's only because I think, you know, some of the things that are in play for us is this concept of today, the Western world and productivity is we've got to do more to be more. We put our self-worth on what we do, but that's not sustainable over time because you don't own it. You're actually putting your success in somebody else's hands. And so we need to actually turn that around so that we can be more to do more. And that is a massive transition for some people to actually think like. And so I guess that's sort of what we might look at for a little bit today, just have a little insight into, well, how do you actually train that? You know, because the being is about process-driven stuff. High-performing athletes and high-performing people actually focus on the being. So it's who they are. Why would you think that is? Would you have an idea? I'm going to ask you questions all day, okay? So, oh, sorry, I'm supposed to speak in here, aren't I? Yep. Yep. Yeah. If you keep going down that, but why is it our being is more important than our doing, if you like? So if we're doing, we tend to be driven by outcomes. So we're putting our self-worth into something else that's external to us. Yeah. Has anyone else got a thought on that? Because this happens in all of our lives. Have a shot. No rights or wrongs. It's going to be hard work today. Okay. It's, basically you can't control something that's in somebody else's hands. Like, if you're trying to please your boss, then you're putting your success in their hands. Okay? And so what holds you strong when you're not pleasing your boss and you're doing that? Where does your mind go to? And we start to see some of these things that we're seeing a lot now in mental health issues is fear of other people's opinions, am I good enough, procrastination, all of these sort of things that start to present themselves. So, but when you're being, it's the one thing you control. What can you control? Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So again, simplifying it, you can only control yourself. And what are some of those things that we control? So if you wanted to carry on that one, you're thinking, what are some of those things? Yeah, so your thoughts. Yeah. It's also your effort, your attitude. They're the big ones, and your language and your actions that you take. They're 100% in our control. And that's basically what we're trying to do more as people, is to actually train ourselves to how do we do that? Because it's blooming hard. This is why most of us don't do it. It's to be present. I'm lucky enough to coach a really cool woman at the moment who is a sort of a marathon kayaker. She's just come back from going to a World Games, World Championships over 5K, and then a World Championships in a marathon race. She had it took 3 years to come out, but she had an identity crisis that I'm not an athlete. And she said to me one day, I can push to get from fourth to sixth, from sixth to fourth, but I can't go from fourth to third, second, or first. I was like, wow, why not? And that was it. I don't see myself as an athlete. So there's an internal thing going on. Okay. And so what I'm trying to say there is sometimes it's real easy as a leader to jump to conclusions on things. I think we've heard, but in those other talks, we've got to know who's in front of us. So how do we do that? How do we actually spend the time to actually get to know the people that are in front of us? And for me, that's one of the real gold nuggets that we have as leaders or people, is actually to understand that person in front of us. So we need to spend time. This is the caring piece that was mentioned at the end, of how do we actually care and how do we do that sort of thing. So she, this year, went and got 3 top 10 finishes. The other complicating piece in that with her, so we got over the identity thing, and she was not a very fast starter in races, and in these races it was really important to be able to get away so you can get into the front bunch, so you could be competitive. But in her mind, she kept having a conversation with herself in there about, I'm not that good at getting away. And it got so bad that she actually was last off the line in one of her races, and she's far better than that. But what it comes round to is the conversation you're having in your head. Okay, so a high-performing person, a confident person. Now, if you think, what's confidence? What is it? Yeah. And what's the biggest coach you have, if you like? That we have. Yeah, and where does that come from? And yeah. So the voice in your head is either your real friend or it's your foe. So when we're in real difficult situations, what's the conversation that's going on in my head? Because that's the thing that we listen to the most. That's the biggest converser that we have all the time. So how do we control that? Okay, and these are some of the things that I think it was really cool to hear some of the things that these guys have done. But a high-performing person, whether you're a leader or an athlete or a musician or whatever, is that they have a really strong purpose. And purpose it has real meaning to you. There's 3 components to purpose. It has real meaning to you. It's bigger than you, and it's future-focused. So if you looked at your purpose to what you're doing, say, in your work now, what's the meaning that it has to you? There could be an ambition thing in there, okay? But what's the thing that's slightly bigger than you? So for some really cool sort of purposes that you get from some people, a CEO of a construction company that I've sort of been familiar with, his is to leave construction or basically make construction known as something that's really positive for New Zealand society. That's his higher purpose to why he's doing what he's doing. Within it is that he wants his staff to be able to have choices. He wants them to be paid well enough so that they can actually have a lifestyle, their family can have a lifestyle, that they can make choices. And he wants them to learn about what it is to be a good citizen. So things like human capital, they have skills, so they've got some usefulness. They have social capital, so they actually know how to converse, get on, and integrate with people. And then obviously financial capital is that they want the infrastructure for New Zealand to actually be able to do something. So he's real clear. The girl that I'm coaching, she has her higher purpose is to make a contribution to brain cancer, to the research of brain cancer. So she's doing a master's of biochemistry, I think it is. And below that is that she wants to be an Olympic athlete. But she's using sport to actually learn about what the mental skills and to build the sort of mindset that's going to allow her to navigate her life as a researcher. That's actually what her drive is. So when it gets real hard, and when we're having these conversations, when she's at a major competition, and like she did in the last race that she had, she said, I'm just going to really take this as a training paddle. She'd done, I think, 7 races in 6 weeks, so she was pretty tired, but also had carried a slight injury and it was a bit sore. And in my old days, it would have been, suddenly reacted, think, what the hell, you're at a World Championships, this is your pinnacle event. But it was about listening to her and actually understanding what the reasons were. But then we brought her back to what her purpose was. And suddenly she does an amazing race, even though she was carrying an injury, but she thought she could manage it in the end. She thought it's the easy option, a brain that loves comfort, absolutely loves comfort. And if we don't train it, so for a high-performing person,
they like to go to the challenge. They have to take themselves on. And a lot of the time it's the challenge within the challenge. Okay, what do you think that would mean? What's the challenge within the challenge from someone as a leader? Thinking internally here for yourselves. Any ideas? It goes down, you know, it's all big challenge, yeah, about taking on, leading a team. You know, there's real positive things about doing that all the time, but in times get tough. Well, you're the one that's accountable. Okay, you've got to make big decisions at times. It might be hard. You might have to lay people off. It's not your nature. New Zealanders are not very good at in terms of conflict times. But it's taking on the challenge within the challenge. It's going into the thought within the thought. So it gets down to an insight level. So that, hey, what is it actually, the real reason that I'm feeling the way I'm feeling? Okay, so high-performing people, they work from their insights. And it's based because of who they are. So they've done the work on who they are. We heard a lot about values and beliefs. And those values and beliefs are aspirational things. They live in our heads. They don't come out until we turn them into character strengths. Okay, and it's those character strengths are the things that take us through hard times or challenging times. So like that. So Lisa Carrington, how do they? She has a courage statement that allows her to be the person she really wants to be. Hers is briefly about something like, you know, I'd rather die from trying my best than not trying. But she relates it to a lioness having to make a kill to be able to feed her family. She knows that she may fail sometimes, but if she keeps persevering, she will get there. And then that connects to another higher purpose that she has. And so the courage statement is really what reminds her to how she can do and hold herself and instead to be able to do these sorts of things. So, you know, and I think coming back to that being piece is really important. You know, today, you know, the amount of information that we get thrown at us, you know, I heard the other day that it's something like 60,000 gigabytes of information every day we take in. It's just massive. We can't deal with that. Our brains are not that well sort of designed for that. But it does mean that, you know, we can't know it all. We actually have to adapt and we need to connect. And so that's the challenge that we have, is how adaptable and flexible can we do to actually be able to manage uncertainty and complexity in our day today. You know, part of the other things is the world's changed. You know, it's far more diverse, the globalization. How do we actually take in different cultures? How do we work with people that's maybe for some of you it'll be an issue, people working remotely, and you know, how do we actually deal with new products, new technology, and technology and those things have a massive impact. So, you know, I guess one of the things that sorry, I'm just going to do this. So one of the systems we look at is this guy Nassim Taleb. He brought up this word called the anti-fragile. These are about the systems we have in place, and this can be internally and externally. Okay, fragile systems, they're basically damaged by disorder. It's real easy that, hey, that they're not going to actually be able to change. As soon as there's some sort of stress, things crack. In a team situation, it may be that we're under-resourced, and it's okay until we can't actually cope. So people may burn out, people may get sick. It may be that the budget's so low that we don't have the resources in terms of equipment that we need, and we definitely might not have the political clout we need to make decisions. A resilient system is one that's, it can deal with things, but it will never grow. So it's actually able to actually deal with a situation. So imagine a bridge that's been designed to withstand an earthquake at a certain size. It can deal with it, but if there's another one, it's not going to get stronger. Whereas anti-fragilism, it flourishes under disorder and basically stress. So in the athlete world and in the leadership world now, we're starting to design anti-fragile systems. So an anti-fragile system, we are an example of an anti-fragile system as a human being. Because, You know, if you were just to go into the gym and exercise a muscle, it gets stronger, right? But what it's doing is sending a message to your central nervous system. Shit, this person's bloody made this muscle work really hard. And so overnight when you rest, it starts sending signals through your body that, hey, we've got to actually start growing this muscle. So it'll put more capillarization and things like that around it so that actually the muscle will grow. So that's a sample of you've stressed it, but it's actually come back and got stronger. Immunizations are a good example, of homeopathy. We put a little bit of disease in you and your immune system will react and it'll get stronger from that sort of thing. Okay, so when we're in a team situation, what sort of redundancy are we building into our teams that allow us to actually take in change and differences? So I sort of just wanted to actually put that up there. We don't have enough time to go into detail on these things. So these are just concepts that sort of going to throw at you and just have a little look. And hopefully the aim is just to, trigger a little light in your mind's eye and see how you go. But let's have a look at that question there. So every time you try to control uncertainty for your team, you may actually be making them weaker. Do you agree? If you agree, come over this side. If you disagree, go over that side. Let's get up and have a wee move. So every time you control uncertainty for your team, you may actually be making them weaker. So if you agree, did I say over there? And disagree over there. And talk to yourselves about why.
I'm just doing this.
Oh wow, no one disagrees. Okay, so what's a couple of points? Why do you agree? Let's have a little look at that. So, yep.
It's an absolute statement, right? Like it's that you may be actually making, well, not quite an absolute statement, but if it was an absolute statement, you couldn't agree with it. But like anything, you do need to keep up with some stress.
Yep.
But as an absolute statement, it doesn't work.
Yeah. No, it's more about, are you making them weaker? You either agree with that or you don't. So what were some of your reasons? Yeah? Yeah. And that's, 100%. Exactly what guy at the back there was saying too, is that, to grow, we've got to stretch. We can't be in a comfort zone to actually grow. And increasingly, when we're under pressure as a leader, we tend to go to actually having harmony within our teams. And we sort of sometimes drop the performance piece. So how do I actually keep my people, my team members actually growing throughout the system? And we'll show you something about that soon. But, where your position is now, how does that reveal a little bit about how you see uncertainty in leadership? Is that the sort of thing that you're doing? And this is really what the question I just posed to you. Are you actually doing that? With the people around you, with yourself? Am I actually stretching myself enough so that I'm actually being able to grow? Okay. So while you're standing there, another really key thing, because it gets to do with how you communicate, each of us has a high performance mindset, which means we're either a process thinker, so do your best, or we're an outcome thinker. Okay. Be the best. Yeah. Where do you sit on that one? And how aware are you of that one? Anyone want to say what they think they are? And then you put it into yourself. It's like, okay, so if I'm a process thinker, it doesn't matter which way you are. It's just that there are traps in both ways, that if you're not aware of, you actually think that way. Okay? And a lot of them is, if you're an outcome thinker, you're the absolute best. Well, procrastination comes a big time in your life. Do I know enough to actually be the best? Whereas if you're a process thinker, one of the traps is that you may not ever be, people may see you as someone that's just of an average ability, but actually for you, you are doing your best. But you've got to deal with people's judgments around that sort of thing. Okay, and so that's then fear of failure, fear of other people's opinions and those sorts of things. And these are modern day stresses that we're all suffering from, okay, that people are suffering from big time, especially youth in that sense. But what it does is it's the language that we use. So if you were to if you were a process thinker and your kids came home from school and you had beliefs around that, so how would you frame up a question to them about how their day went? If you were a process thinker, what do you reckon? Anyone want to have a go? It's easy if you're an outcome thinker. Did you have a great day? Yeah. And that's why we just get blank walls half the time. But how is it if... Yeah, and keep on that. That's an outcome one. Okay. But what did you learn today? And then what did it feel like when you had to ask that question? And then what did it feel like when the others actually said something different? And these are how we start to frame process thinking and growth within people, just the way we communicate with them. Okay? And so it does get reflected through. So we do need awareness. Are we an outcome thinker or a process thinker? And then what's the language we use with it? Because that's where the evidence is. Because most of us think that we're process thinkers. But when it comes to our conversations, it looks a little bit different. Okay? Okay. You can sit down now, yeah. Sorry. Okay, so how do high-performing people, what do? Well, this is what they do. They're training their mindsets, okay? So in here, we've got in the middle is the inner you. So they spend time on understanding what their high-performance mindset. They have a personal philosophy. So what guides you? As you go through life, your philosophy will change, okay? But they do the hard work on that because, we all have one, but we may not be aware of it. And a lot of that is, just the type of clothes you wear, or the religion you have, or the schools you send your children to, the people you hang out with. They're all indicators of what your philosophy is, okay, about the choices that you make. The vision, we've heard that big time. They're laser focused on what they actually have to do. There is no noise comes into their decision making outside of that, okay? And then character is a big one. We all have 24 character strengths within us. If you wanted some information on the Values in Action website, fantastic. Do the test. It's free, and it'll come up and show you your order of character strengths. But we have generally 5 or 6 that are our signature strengths, which are our go-tos. And we use those, like I said before, to take myself out of my comfort zone. We use those in all situations. We may not be aware of it because we've never done anything and thinking about that. So once we've done our internal work, okay, then we come over to this side over here, which is our psychological framework. So grit, control, optimism. Not too many high-performing people who are not optimistic. In fact, every single one of them is optimistic. They believe that something good is around the corner. Okay? The grit part, okay, it keeps you on that, keeps you thinking about where am I going? I believe in myself. And then the control, like we've said before, is actually I control myself on my beliefs and values. So a high-performing person, okay, they measure themselves on their values in action. It's not actually the outcome. So Federer, he's a great guy for this. He's down 40 love and he's got to go for a backhand down the line, tough shot. High percentage shot that of actually getting it out. That's what he actually backs himself on. Did I actually go for it when I really had to? I'm 40 love down in a major set. Did I cop out or did I go for it? And then afterwards, that's what he would be reflecting on. Was I that person today? Okay. So that's the sort of, every single one of these things are trainable. That's the skill. This is the work that they do and how they do it. Over this side is our mental skills, the things that keep us in the moment. to being our best. So when we are facing adversity, when we're even at our best and we don't go too flippant, I mean, it's real easy when you've got a few beers or whatever you're socialising and you can start saying too much at times, okay? These are the ones that calm, confidence, focus, trust. Again, they're all really trainable sort of skills, and we'll go into trust when we do some of this stuff, some of these exercises. So just sort of whiz through that. The other ones here, this is massive, your recovery. Recovery should be in your day every day. It's not an extra, it's not an add-on, okay? These are the things that keep us healthy, okay? So sleep, number one. If we have real bad sleep, we basically become dumb and really incoherent. It's hard to think, you all know. It's real hard to think when you're not awake. Eat and hydrate well. You know, so important. Our body needs it. It's our energy. It's our fuel. We need to fuel it all the time. And then getting out and moving. You know, it's so important. That's how our brain grows. It sends through these chemicals that allow us to make these connections. So the more active we are, the more we're actually got a chance of keeping our brain in that plastic state. And all of this leads so that we can think well. So when we have to make the decision, we can think well. We're clear and we're in control. Okay? So that's the complexity of where high-performing people go, whether you're a leader, whether you're an athlete, a musician, whatever, or an academic, they put time into that stuff that becomes really massive for them in their lives. So from a high-performing team's perspective, there's a really cool model called the Rocket Model. Not sure why half of that's come up. Sorry. Basically, that is a roadmap to performance for a team. It basically takes you through what's involved in how to train and coach a team, to put a team together. Down the bottom is the context. You know, we've heard it before, and these guys did a really cool job of this, I reckon, on their project. But context is really key. What's the context that we're looking at? Everyone has a different viewpoint, even from a high-performing mindset perspective. But we all have a different view sometimes, and if we're not aligned, then there's going to be sort of when we come to actually get results or courage, then suddenly that's where the cracks get seen and those sorts of things. So the mission and clear goals, very clear of what they are. People are involved in them. We've got performance markers. Again, you know, the high performance person, they tend to have markers rather than a goal. The goal is finite. They're actually looking for something further, so there's more opportunities. Talent, we've heard that before. These guys pick the right talent in the right roles. The people you're picking are decided by the goals that you've got there. How often does that not happen in teams and selection? And favouritism comes through and that sort of thing. The norms, absolutely massive for teams. Norms will evolve. You know, the unwritten rules, they will just evolve if we don't actually do them right. So what's the operating rhythm of our team, the meetings rules, the roles and responsibilities, you know, who has the rights to do what? Those sorts of things, if they're not discussed, they will actually evolve, but they may, over time, when the pressure comes on, become one of the bigger issues as to why we don't have courageous conversations in our team anymore. And that then also about buy-in. Is there enough of motivation to achieve the goals? So again, how are we putting these people together? Are we clear about what we're doing and the context that we've got there? And then the other one, resources and courage, we'll do a little bit on that. Ultimately, the results is what comes from how we actually operate as a team, okay? The thing with results is that's not the end point for a high-performing team. That's the beginning of the next cycle. They actually review and go through, okay, how can we get better? And they keep trying to actually do it again. How many projects do we rush to the next one and we probably continue to make sometimes the same mistakes? So when you put it into the bigger picture of an organisation, this is where basically on all of those components you can get a score, and it tells you where your teams are at any stage across any of those components. So just made some of these up. But from a business perspective, you know, your TQ is your team effectiveness, so that company is sitting at 44.9 out of 100. And that's compared to against thousands and thousands and thousands of other teams in the database. So So they've got a bit of work to do as a company to actually, how do we actually use building teams so we're getting the effective outcomes? What's really interested in this one is that the senior leadership team scores really high. And this is really common, but the others are quite low. So they're quite comfortable being there. They think it's going well because their team's in there. And so, yeah, it gives you a really cool chance to see, well, actually in our company, probably, yeah, courage is quite low. So we've got some work to do there around it. So it's sort of like a diagnostic tool, but it's also a development tool, how you can actually be very sort of prescriptive about how you're going to build your teams. And massive sort of, I reckon, resource that hey, we don't do this quite enough. The other big thing that I just wanted to mention last is, are you a team or are you a group? So when we're building teams, we really need to understand, are we a team or are we a group? Okay, because how you manage them is different. If you manage a team like a group, then you're going to isolate people. Okay, so a team is when there's interdependence required to get the goals done. They're rewarded on what they've collaborated together. Okay, a group is more about they're independent to be able to do their jobs, and again, rewards are individually sort of rewarded. So a salesperson is a good example of a group of salespeople is really a group. But if you tell that group of salespeople and manage them like a team, saying that, hey, you guys have to help each other, then there's a little bit of tension comes into it. It's sort of use a golf analogy of four in a golf four, and you said to someone like Rory McIlroy, help that. You've actually got to help these other three players in your group to actually do better than what they are. Help them to score better. And he's like, well, what the hell? Because I'm up for $1 million sort of paycheck at the end of this round. I'm not going to be helping them. But that happens in our teams. If we don't identify whether you're a group or a team, so we manage them differently, okay? Whereas the team, we manage them from within quite often. Yes, there's times when you'll be a little bit directive and there's times when you'll lead from behind. But we need to be more collaborative, and our goals are and our meetings are about togetherness, whereas we tend to do one-on-ones as a group, okay? So that's a huge one, is understanding that sort of thing. Cool, sorry, had to whiz through that. Okay, well, what we could do now is just have a look at some of these sort of scenarios. I've given you a little tool that I think is really cool to, again, that you can take into your own environment, but it's a really cool leadership skill. It's called facilitative questioning. So what it's designed to do is to really help you find your meanings to what you're actually saying. So you have a person that will question you. So one of you will be a questioner, and then someone else will just be listening. And then you're asking questions to generally understand what they're saying. So you stay with them, sort of like, that's why that fighter plane's up there. You just stay with them. The real easy thing for us to do is to try and fix people all the time. But actually our skill is to listen to them and try and understand them. So one of our leadership skills is actually, it's a social skill, is how I'm actually going to hear this person without putting my personal views into them. That's tough. That's a coaching skill. Us as coaches at times, it's real easy to jump straight into what you think is the solution, but you actually haven't spent the time getting to know them. So on the second page of that facilitative questioning is really some questions that how you can lead the questions into helping you unpack someone. And I thought it'd be good to have a go using this scenario, okay, that you've got in front of you, the one that says, the illusion of agreement, okay? So if you could get into threes, okay? And then you'll have a look at what that scenario is on that top one on the sheet, okay? And what we're looking at there is, and then one of you is going to become the questioner. So use the questions on there if it helps you. One of you are going to listen for what you're hearing, and the other one is obviously the one getting questioned, okay? And then we'll swap after about 4 minutes. And we'll just see what sort of things come out of it. So we're exploring here how, I guess the question that would get asked is, how would you go about creating more productive dialogue within your team meetings? Because the scenario is that as a team leader, you're doing all the talking all the time in your teams. Okay, and what's at play there at the moment is the fact that you've basically got some conflict happening in there. Okay, and it's a thing we call artificial harmony. It's where people have tapped out. So they come to the meetings and they just agree. So it's gone real quiet all the time. Okay, it's to do with this thing about courage. Courage is about how much conflict do we allow into our team, because we need that. We need to challenge. That's how high-performing teams operate. They feel safe to be able to say what they need to say in a team situation. So we really want to, in that continuum down the bottom between high conflict and low conflict, we want to be around 4.5. Okay, so that actually gives us that sort of marker. The thing there that we've got issues in personal, if we go above 5, you start to become, you're personalising your conflict. And that's when it gets destructive. Okay, so if we can keep it to the issues, then we're doing really, really well. Okay, but it's quite close.
Okay, so thank you so much, guys. Just to wrap up from today, so we started off, we asked you what you wanted to get out of it. It was to be inspired, it was to have skills to take away and apply, to learn to deal with clients, advice on leadership and management, adding to a management competency framework, instill some calmness and balance, get those golden nuggets, some tools for your career, and how to keep the team motivated. So I think, look, the guys did a pretty good job of taking us through that. So from Marissa, I think we learnt you can gut a deer in 10 minutes. You can do anything if you push yourself. You need a cheer squad behind you. Focus on the why, the people, the team. Success is not about the money. Success is about your people doing well. So it's leadership, it's connection, and it's energy and being grounded. And finally, leadership, I suppose, from Marissa then was about when your labour hire guy doesn't turn up, you go and do the night shift, put the boots on, roll up sleeves, and get the nail gun out. And in Isaac and Hannah, I think it was courage, clarity, connection, confidence. Use visual communication. Vulnerability is not a weakness. Vulnerability is the most accurate measure of courage. Provide mentoring, clear direction, follow through with what you say you're going to do, and once someone is competent, the next step is to grow confidence. So thank you all so much. Let's give them a massive round of applause.